Hello modelers, as you probably already know, there are 3 American car model kits awaiting to be built. I wasn't sure which of these I should start with first, so I asked this question in the poll. The model kit that gathered the highest number of votes was the 1971 Olds 442W30. The Olds kit, labeled with the number 14511, recommends an age above 13 and it is classified as level 5. Which essentially means it's the highest skill level for these kits. So I decided to cover it with Mr. Hobby Grey Primer first, then as a base color I chose Tamiya Dark Copper XF28, and for the clear coat I went for Mr. Hobby GX112. So that's it for the bodywork. As for the interior, I wanted to achieve a classic semi-gloss look using Tamiya X18. So during the muscle car wars of the 1960s and 70s, the Olds 442 was a standout contender. The name 442 originally referred to the car's features: a 4-barrel carb, a 4-speed manual transmission, and dual exhaust. By 1968, the 442 became a standalone model, still based on the popular Oldsmobile Cutlass. Then, in 1971, Olds 442W30 emerged as one of the last true icons of this thrilling period. The W30 package included a specially tuned 455 cubic inch engine producing 350 horsepower and featured a distinctive twin-scooped hood with functional ram air induction, complemented by bolt hood and body side stripes. So when it comes to the building process, I always begin with the bodywork because it requires significant effort. First, I smooth its surface using a 3000 grit sanding sponge to enhance primer adherence. Next, I deepen the panel lines with a scriber to make them more visible. Once these steps are completed, I am ready to prime the bodywork. I use Mr. Hobby 1500 Grey Primer, which is thinned with Mr. Hobby Leveling Thinner at a ratio of 1 to 1.5. When applied with a 0.3 airbrush set to the smallest spot size and a 15 psi pressure, it provides good coverage with just a few layers. Once the bodywork is primed, it's time to refine its surface. I begin with 3000 grit sanding sponge and then proceed to wet sanding using 4000, 6000 and 8000 grit sandpapers. It's a rather time-consuming task because if you accidentally sand too much, you have to backtrack and reapply primer to those areas. However, once it's prepared, you can move on to applying the base color. For this project, I selected Tamiya's XF28 Dark Copper, which is thinned at a nearly similar ratio as the primer. Airbrush is set to the smallest spot size as well. A few coats and it's finished. Once the bodywork, hood, side mirrors and other visible exterior parts are complete, you can apply a thin layer of clear coat. Mr. Hobby GX112 is thinned at a 1:4 ratio because it's relatively thick. This layer provides a smooth base for the decals, allowing them to move more freely during application and adhere better to the surface. So after a day or two, decals can be applied. I typically use microset and microsol to soften the decals, making it easier to conform to the shape of the surface. And please do remember that it's essential to have a sharp modeling knife to avoid damaging the decals. Once all the necessary decals are applied, you can proceed with applying another layer of clear coat. The purpose of this step is to protect the decals from UV rays. However, it's crucial to exercise caution here because this process has the potential to damage your work. If the clear coat is a hot lacquer type and it is applied too heavily, it can harm the decals. Fortunately, I've never encountered this issue. For GX112, I follow the practice of applying thin layers, allowing more than 5 minutes of drying time between each layer and gradually increasing the thinning of the clear coat. I start with a 1:4 ratio and then move to 1:6 ratio. So far this method has worked well for me. I've also seen projects where decals weren't covered with clear coat at all, and that worked fine for those as well. That's why I decided to take a hybrid approach and only apply clear coat to the major decals. While the clear coat on the bodywork is drying, the rest of the parts can be prepared. They need to be cut off the spruce, sanded with 3000 grit sandpaper and primed. Some of the parts can be glued together before taking this action, such as the engine. The next step is polishing the bodywork, which I typically do after about a week to ensure that clear coat is fully cured. I begin with wet sanding, starting with 4000 grit, then moving to 6000 and finally finishing with 8000 grit sandpaper. Once the bodywork is uniformly sanded, I can apply fine and finish polishing compounds. It's important to do it carefully, as not paying close attention can sometimes lead to going through the clear coat, paint and primer layers, and then you might need to take a few steps back to fix it. Once the polishing is complete, I return to painting the other parts. I organize them based on the colors they need to be painted and apply the paint from the brightest to the darkest color. When working with chrome parts, the Molotov marker is extremely helpful. It allows you to easily paint the raised parts of the wheels or trims on the interior components. Now, when the parts don't require any additional painting, you can proceed to apply the decals. In this example, there are specific wood pattern decals designed for the door panels. For the first door panel, I didn't trim the decal, so it covered the chrome painted trim. However, for the second panel, I trimmed it, resulting in a more realistic appearance. Therefore, you have the option to either paint the trims with chrome and trim the decals, or just apply the decals as they are. A quick panel lining technique involves using a black accent color and then wiping it off with Tamiya X20 thinner. This method adds some detailing touches to areas like the engine, exhaust pipes or tank. All the parts are now completed and we are ready for the final assembly. In this step I will use Super Gold Plus CA glue for most parts, and for any transparent ones I will use Micro Crystal Clear to prevent them from frosting during the gluing process. BSI Super Glue is also an option for clear parts, but since I have nearly a full jar of Crystal Clear, I opted for that approach. The Rebel model kit represents the real car really nice. And what's more, you can opt for either a 4-speed manual or Turbo 400 automatic transmission. And there are 2 different consoles for the interior to choose from as well. So that's it, just a few final details and we are done with another project. I've never built any American car model kits before, but this kit was really easy to work with. There were no issues along the way and the parts fit perfectly with a nice level of detail. This kit offers plenty of possibilities for adding extra details, such as engine wires, interior seat belts, or weathering the bodywork to make it more eye-catching. My goal here was to keep it simple and clean, and I'm quite happy with the result. I really hope that you enjoyed it too. Thanks for watching. If you haven't fallen asleep yet, feel free to leave a comment, hit the like button or subscribe to my channel. Cheers!